The next video is the next installment for the world's greatest ghost, and we're up to the Spinster's grave. Spinster Hannah Beswick died more than 200 years ago. Her body was embalmed, but her restless spirit still haunts a factory built on the land where her home once stood. Hannah was a wealthy Lancashire landowner whose house, Birch and Bower, dominated acres of fertile land at Hollandwood, on the outskirts of Manchester. She was not normally fearful, but in 1745 Bonnie Prince Charlie crossed the border to England and advanced south. She became so obsessed with the thought of the invading Scots that she hid all her money and valuables. They remained hidden for the rest of her life. Apart from the Scots, her only real terror was that of being buried alive, a fear quite understandable in the light of what had happened in her own family. One of her brothers had fallen ill, and while unconscious had been pronounced dead by a local doctor. Preparations were made for his funeral, and he was laid in an open coffin so that friends and relatives could pay their last respects. While lying in his shroud surrounded by flowers, he began to show signs of life. The unfortunate man was hastily removed to his bed. Hannah died in 1768, without divulging where she had hidden her fortune. Because of what had happened to her brother, she took steps to ensure that her corpse was not buried. She left Birch and Bower to young Dr. Charles White with the stipulation that he must have her embalmed and kept in a safe and respectable place above ground. For some strange reason, she also insisted that every 21 years her body should be taken back to the house and allowed to lie in the granary for 7 days. Old Hannah was duly mummified, her body coated with tar and wrapped in heavy linen bandages. In accordance with her wishes, the face was left uncovered. For many years, Dr. White faithfully kept the body at his own home, Sale Priory, but when he died, it was moved to Manchester Natural History Society's museum, where it became a major attraction. A century after Hannah Beswick was embalmed, the commissioners of the society, finding the museum overfilled with relics and needing room for new acquisitions, decided it was time she was given a proper burial. She was finally interred at Harp Ferry Cemetery on July 22nd, 1868. Some people had already claimed to have seen her ghost wandering through the rooms of Birch and Bower, dressed in her usual black silk gown and white lace cap. After burial, the ghost became more agitated. Hannah was seen hurrying between the old barn and the pond as though deeply troubled. Sometimes, it was said, the old barn glowed as if on fire. The house remained empty for some years, inhabited only by the spirit of Hannah Beswick. Then it was bought by a developer, renovated and converted into small dwellings to be rented out to cotton workers and labourers. The new tenants were often to see her drifting by, head bent as though deep in thought. One particular aspect of her behaviour was puzzling. Sometimes she would disappear at a particular spot, a corner flagstone in the parlour of a house occupied by a handloom weaver. Hannah seemed to hover about this room as though reluctant to leave it. The weaver decided to pull up part of the flagstone floor to make a place where he could install a new loom. To his amazement, he found, hidden underneath a hoard of gold, he had found part of Hannah Beswick's fortune. After this, Hannah was seen frequently, no longer thoughtful, but angry and menacing. People spoke of a brilliant blue light darting from her eyes. Sometimes at night she was seen near the pond, and at other times strange unearthly noises were heard in the barn. No one would venture there after dark unless they had urgent business. It gave rise to the speculation that perhaps the rest of her valuables were hidden nearby, and she was determined to protect them. The hauntings continued until Birch and Bower was demolished. A factory was built on the spot, and that was thought to be the end of the affair. Then people who knew nothing of her story began saying that they had caught a glimpse of a strange old-world figure in a black silk gown and white lace cap. And that ends that installment for the world's greatest ghosts.